Let me just talk to you about what I saw. And I'm still trying to make sense of it, but maybe, in the process of talking about it, I'll get some clarity as well for you guys. So first of all, I saw two images, and the first one is, I saw this squirrel, okay? So he's found like two chestnuts or two acorns on the ground. He has something on the ground, and he picks it up, and he has two, and he's holding it in his little front paws, and he climbs up a tree, and he has a tree that he always goes to put away his stash. And he looks around to make sure that no one sees him. And then he burrows himself into this little hole in the tree. And then he puts away his stash. And then he kind of like pokes his head out, looks around to make sure no one sees what he's doing. And then he exits the hole, climbs back down the tree, and starts looking around for more resources, for more acorns, for more things that will sustain him through the winter. Okay? And so when I saw this, I was just thinking, it's okay for us to take care of our assets. Okay. It's okay for us to kind of like cover our own behind. It's okay for us to be a little bit selfish and learn to take care of ourselves. So that was like the initial message I got that came through. And so what I feel might be really important for you guys as we round out this year is for you to re-examine your financial assets, okay? Look through your ledgers, look through a bank account, look through wherever it is that you swirl away your money, to make sure that things are where they're supposed to be. Okay, so I feel like there might have been wrong charges to your bank accounts, to your credit cards. There might have been money, inadvertently like taken out, or there might have been wrongfully charged transactions. So I feel like it's really important for you to kind of like look through your financial ledgers to make sure everything is up to date and to make sure that everything is squared away the way it should be. I'm also seeing this sneaky behavior, not in a bad way, of course, of like needing to separate your assets, needing to kind of like swirl money away in a place where it's safe. Okay. So like having a safe place or a safe space for yourself or for your financial resources would be really good for you. Having a safe place for you to be in, for you to retreat to when things get a little bit dicey, with whomever you're dealing with. That's also going to be very crucial for this month. Okay. So I almost feel like you're gearing up for battle. I almost feel like you're contemplating or thinking about some major big change in your life that requires quite a bit of financial resources, or even resources in general, whatever that might be, time, money, energy, just like you're gearing up for something really big, and you need to make sure that everything is lined up. Okay. So I have a Sagittarius moon, and I know Sagittarius people really, really hate like bookkeeping, itemizing, making lists, making, check off things and making sure every little thing is where it's supposed to be. Like that is one of the worst things that a Sagittarius, would like. That's one of the worst things that I feel, you can subject a Sagittarius to, because you guys don't like to do these little minute details that is time consuming and tedious and overall it's not really fun. But because you don't like to do it, I feel like there's more urgency for you to do it, especially for the month of December. So I feel for many of you, this might be a good time for you to just lay out everything in front of you and just, take a few hours of your day and try to knock those things out. Okay. For many of you, this could be like, end of the year, like accounting. Okay. So itemizing everything that you have spent, all the expenses, all the expenditures, all your revenue, like whatever it is. I see a lot of just numbers, a lot of things in front of you that you have to like itemize, square away, file away. And I know it's very tedious and it sounds so excruciatingly painful to have to do, but it's really important that you do it. Okay. So that's the first thing coming out. And the theme that I'm seeing is definitely kind of echoed in the cards. Okay, so let me show you all the major arcana cards, and I'm trying to make sure I don't lose the order here. We have the High Priestess. We have Temperance. Let me show you this card, Temperance. This is your card. We then have the Strength card. Then we have the Magician. So 4 major arcana here. We have the Devil. And then we also have the Hierophant. So what I initially picked up as pretty much the theme for this reading is I almost feel like there is a huge tug of war happening within you, okay? In your psyche or in your emotional state, okay? And I feel like what it is you know, there's overall what I'm seeing as a sense of like restraint, and then wanting to the opposite of that. So there, on the one hand, there's this duality about, you know, having a lot of self-control, having a lot of control in general, having a lot of restraint, doing things the proper way, itemizing everything and making sure that, you know, everything is like calibrated, carefully planned out, carefully thought about. Okay. And then the other side of you just wants to like dash in, you know, get your hands dirty and then ask questions later. And these two sides of yourself are kind of like it's like a tug of war happening within you, and it frustrates you. That's what I feel. And I also feel like with this energy, the High Priestess, hanging on to something very, very tightly, okay? Caring for something. And I almost feel like you might be overstepping your boundaries when it comes to the way in which you take care of another person. And I don't feel like this is something that's happening overnight, or it's something where it's like, you know, once in a while. I feel like this is an ongoing pattern or an ongoing process in which you're doing everything for another person. For some of you, it could be a child. You're not allowing that child to be, you know, self-sufficient. For others of you, it's like, you know, taking on the role of the maternal, the parental figure, so that you're doing something completely for another person, and then they come to rely on you, and then they don't know how to be self-sufficient. Okay, this is like holding on, wanting to control a situation very, very much, like so tightly that it stifles the growth of that entity, that person, that child, that plant, that house pet, that baby, whatever it is. It's stifling the potential and the growth potential of that entity. So I feel like this is an ongoing process, because I feel like it has dragged on for many, many years. And so once we become aware of it, as you guys might have been aware of it, it's really hard to loosen the reins, right? It's really hard to kind of like be so emotionally wrapped up and invested in something. And now all of a sudden you're forced to kind of like, you know, back off pretty much. And now you're racked with anxiety, because you're just like, well, if I backed off, you know, it's going to fall apart. It's so delicate and it's so fragile. What's going to happen to it? And I feel like it's not really in your control. It's not really your place to exert that much control and influence over that entity. So I do feel here the universe is pretty much telling you to loosen the reins, okay? Loosening the reins doesn't mean that we're no longer in the driver's seat, we're no longer in control. It just basically means that we're practicing kind of like loving detachment, and we're allowing that entity enough space and enough distance to grow. And we're allowing ourselves to, trust that we have done a good job, so that when we loosen the reins and back off and step aside and watch it from the sidelines, that it's still going to be able to function and perform the way that we expect it to. Okay, so I feel for many of you, this is a very maternal, paternal type of an energy, where you might be, for example, your kids might be going off to college and you're just like, oh, you're racked with anxiety and you're not really sure how they're going to be able to take care of themselves, because you've taken care of everything for them. And then for others, this is like you started a project, a really, really big project. It's like your love child, and you're launching it, and you're just racked with anxiety, not really knowing how it's going to take off. And then for others, this is like a relationship partner that you might have to detach yourself from. Okay. I feel really funny saying this to especially in a Sagittarius reading, because you guys are very live and let live. You're not clingy. You're not, you don't tend to overstep emotional boundaries in this way. But I feel like for whatever reason, you're emotionally very invested in this entity. And so you want it to do well, and you see it as an extension of you as well. And regardless of whoever or in whatever capacity you're dealing with this entity, I just feel like there's also like a sense of paternal, maternal pride associated with it, which might not be completely healthy if it's like a relationship partner, right? But I also feel like, I also feel as if you understand yourself that is not healthy, that you kind of need to, this is like, I almost feel this element of control. Okay. The bird is like holding the reins, controlling this wild beast. It seems to me like there's an element of control. There's an element of like, something that's very mechanical, something that's like automation, something that's just like going with the flow. Not having to think, somebody who is well taken care of, that they never have to think about what they need to do to take care of themselves. And when we put another person in this type of a situation, we take away their free will and their human agency and their ability to act and think for themselves and their ability to grow as a person. So I do feel like this energy might not be completely healthy. So if you're aware of this, it is time for you to really, really loosen the reins a lot more, so that, this situation can start to, I guess, thrive and flourish on its own. Okay. Next to that, I have here the devil. And this is like, the way I look at this card is it's something that's very debilitating. Okay, it could be physically, mentally, health-wise, but this woman, she's got a blindfold on. So I feel like it's like a situation where we're in denial of something. Okay. We're in denial of for some of you, dwindling resources. Okay. And, of course, not all of you are going to be in this situation, but I do feel like we can no longer be in denial. We need to, take out the spreadsheet, go through all of our bank ledgers and try to figure out, how much financial resources we have at our disposal, how much we can afford to spend, how many more years we need to work before we can completely retire and be comfortable financially. We need to see, if we're planning to sell a house, for example, we need to look at the market price and do some preliminary research to see how much the house is worth. So I feel like there's a lot of financial planning here that you haven't been too savvy about, that you need to, work at. And I do feel like it's better for you to be ahead of this energy and to know how much assets you have and to know your financial standing and your financial situation before something else happens. So I just feel like there's something you've been in denial about, and you kind of brushed it off. And it's really time for you to just, face those fears, because, if you think about it, all in the previous few years, for example, the previous 5 years, the things that you really feared, once you face them head on, you realize they're not that scary, right? So we have a habit of making like mountains out of molehills. And so when we don't like to do something in our heads, those annoyances or those things that we don't want to do, they get bigger and bigger. And I feel like if you just sit down and tackle it head on, it's not going to be that bad. So I would urge you to not procrastinate on this and just, take off those blindfolds and really really get the proper information to know exactly what you're dealing with. Okay. So that's the really important message, because, it's all concentrated in this area where the 5 major arcana cards are located. So I do feel it's time for you to kind of like have mastery over this situation. Okay. Get out from behind the steering wheel and just, look at the situation and examine it and have control over it. So the magician energy it's a really strong energy. It basically indicates manifesting, being able to turn a situation and manipulate a situation in your favor. So I do feel like things are not what they seem and they're not that scary. So it's really important for you to, own up to your sense of power and take control of this situation, okay? So those are like all the disparate messages that I was picking up from that first image, okay? The other thing that I do feel as well is if you're dealing with another person and you're financially, linked up with them, okay? The devil energy and the 8 of Pentacles really indicates, a situation that you've really worked hard at. And I do see a little bit here about, the environment, other people, circumstances, life choices, events, culture, religion even, that's pigeonholing you into doing something, right? And I feel like, you were expected to do something and you stuck it out because that was what was expected of you. And I feel almost like whatever that was really expected of you, you never questioned it. You never question, is this the right path for me? Is this my destiny? Is this something that I really, really want? Is this, you just took it at face value that that was the best optimal outcome, or that was what was expected of you. You never questioned it. And coming into this month, I do see a lot of self-awareness, a lot of realization, a lot of this energy here with the High Priestess. It's like really knowing ourselves, knowing deep down in our hearts of hearts, in the recesses of our minds and our hearts and our soul, what is good for us, what really inspires us, what really excites us, what we really want as an individual once we peel away all those layers of, societal expectations, family expectations, doing what is required or expected of us because that was what we did, because we were it was imposed upon us. So I do feel here, you're casting away those chains, okay? Literally just like breaking free. And I feel starting over. And I feel as well figuring out, like very carefully measuring and trying to figure out if this didn't work for me, if I've worked really diligently, for the past 8 years at it, and it wasn't right for me, what else is there? Like, what's the alternative? What's the outcome? And I would urge you, don't sway too far on the opposite ends of the spectrum. Okay, so for example, you might have been that, really, really diligent student going through med school, law school, or doing something, like working on your master's degree or a PhD. And then you're just like, I'm burnt out. I'm having doubts whether or not this is the right career path. And then, the opposite end of the spectrum is just like dropping school altogether, withdrawing from all of your classes and taking a sabbatical and just, traveling for 3 years. I would say the answer that you're looking for is somewhere in between, and you don't have to take such drastic changes, okay? A lot of the times when we feel like we've been shackled or stuck in a situation for so long, once we have our sense of freedom back, we feel like we want to, go wild. But I do sense in this situation